Do I mention names like say am I talking with Don? Is he on there too?
No, he won't be seen.
Oh, okay, just sitting here by myself.
Just a voice.
Yeah.
His voice may come into it if he asks you some questions.
Oh.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, my name is Harris Teal. I was born March 5th, 1925 at Shelton, Washington. I went to school at Shelton for 3 years and I contracted tuberculosis. So I was put into the Cushman Hospital. I spent 5 years there and I got tired of being there, so I decided to stay home when they let me go home on vacation. And shortly after that I went back for x-ray. I was all right. So I spent 2 more years at Skokomish grade school. And then I graduated in 1937. I went to Chamawa Indian School for 3 years. The war broke out and I left school to volunteer. I volunteered for the Navy and I went and got my physical and I passed my physical and I was sitting there waiting to be swore in and the doctors came along with my x-ray and they told me I couldn't be swore in. I had a scar on my left lung, so they couldn't accept me for the Navy. So I tried the Merchant Marine. I couldn't get in there, so I just ended up to be 4F. My father got hurt in a car wreck and it was fatal within 7 days. So his name was Harry Jasper Teal. He was the son of Alex Teal. And my mother's name was Irene Davis Dan. And her father was Joe Dan. Her mother was a Moses, the Moses from Moses Lake country. We found this out afterwards. Well, when the new Enrollment Act came into effect, I was excluded. My brothers and sisters were excluded from the rolls on account of we didn't live here, and the fact that they were maintaining that we were Cascades, which I came over. We moved over directly after my father passed away, and I took the case up myself and went before the tribal council, and we found witnesses that said my grandmother was a full-blood Wishbone. So we were put back on the rolls. I worked in the logging industry almost all my life, which is almost all my working time, which is around 25 to 30 years. And I started out from the bottom and I worked up to where I was qualified to be a superintendent of a logging camp. And I was in charge of a camp at Lester, Washington. I had the authority to hire and fire and everything that had to do with the logging camp, safety of the men and everything. But I come to a point where I knew that I wasn't going to advance anymore probably on account of my race. I believe it was because I was doing the job but I wasn't getting paid for it, so I figured that I might as well get out of that industry. So I moved over here to Yakima 7 years before that, 10, 12 years before that, and I worked 7 years driving up to camp on weekends and driving home on weekends, 5 days and nights away from home, from my family. I finally got old, so I quit and I moved up here and went to work for a web logging company. It's a totally different concept of logging over here in the eastern part than it is in on the western part of the state, coast part of the states. It's a different system, and I started out running CAD. I run mostly all the heavy equipment. I started out running CAT, piling brush, and from there I went to falling timber, and that's what I liked, so I stayed with it. Felled timber for 3 years over here in the eastern part of the state, on the reservation and off the reservation. There's no room for advancement there either. So I decided to go in business for myself, so I did. I acquired a franchise type of business cleaning carpets for DuraClean International. They're all over the world. I worked pretty hard at it the first year and had my son involved, but he started to go to college and I got on the council and I just didn't have time for the business, so I let it kind of fade away, and then I got out of that business.
Did your father have a title before he passed away?
Yes.
Church.
Yes, my father was in the governing part of the church for about 16 years. He was the head elder of the church. That's we have a bishop and 5 elders and 1 head elder, and he was the head elder for quite a few years. And then when he passed away, then William Martin, who was also a Yakima, became the head elder. And then when I first got elected about 12 years ago to the head of the church, I was the second elder to Bill Martin. And a few years ago, Bill Martin passed away, then I had to fill his vacancy as bishop. So I become the duly elected bishop 3 years ago for the Shaker Church in Northwest in Canada, British Columbia. And that's where I'm at yet today. I joined the Shaker Church about some better than 12 years ago. I was an awful heavy drinker. I drank just day and night, almost 24 hours a day. I couldn't seem to kick the habit. Even though I had a good supply of beer in my car, I always had to stop and get some more. I just kept on continuously buying it. I had one refrigerator chuck full all the time.
What inspired you to join the Shaker Church?
Well, after my father passed away, I kind of felt kind of hurt about it. All right, and I decided to sit down and get help by the Shaker people. So they did. They helped me at White Swan, and I received the Shaker religion. I changed my life, and just in a few minutes, I lost all the desire to drink. I couldn't stand the smell of it. I can't stand the smell of it today, or I can't stand to be around anyone that's drinking. What happens to me physically, I get a genuine hangover when I'm around where somebody has been drinking. I just get their sickness, I guess. So it just relieved me of all that. So since then, I haven't had anything to drink, and I don't have no desire to drink. Well, before I got on the council, I had impression of the tribal council as people that weren't doing their job, weren't doing the right thing by the people. Of course, I found out later that I was wrong in some respects, but I decided to try to do something about it. So I got in and somehow got a parents group organized, and before the elections we held meetings. We talked about problems of the council, talked about things that should be done for the people, and before the last meeting was over, I decided, well, I might as well run for the council, so I did. And I got in, and I found out that it's not that people in the council were probably doing their best to work, but I had a chance to get in and work on what was my favorite subject was alcoholism. I seen the families, the children that were affected by alcoholism, by the hardcore alcoholic, where families were split up, children were abused, were neglected, had a struggle to get into the school system and stay in the school system on account of drinking in the homes. I've actually seen cases where little children were going to school without breakfast, where children were beaten, where elderly parents of drinking young men and women and older were being abused and actually robbed of their money, whatever possessions they might have that were saleable, that they were able to take into the hawk shops, were stolen from the homes from the older people. All these problems. So I got into council, and there was no large alcoholism program that totally addressed the needs of the people that were afflicted by this, what we call sickness today. So I went to work on it, and late Chairman Robert Jim was gave me the most help that I could ever imagine could come from the chairman of the tribe. He let me work on it. He gave me authority to do things that had to be done in order to acquire a program. It took a lot of lobbying. It took a lot of traveling to contact people that would have the authority to say, yes, here's an amount of money you can use to work on the alcoholism program. And before I could start, I knew I had to contact someone that had the expertise to put together a program. So I found Mike Moyer, who had worked here with Bureau of Indian Affairs and Education and was phased out because his ideas, I believe, were too far ahead for his time at that time with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and this agency. He had good ideas. And I contacted him, and him and I sat down in the motel in Seattle one whole day and discussed this alcoholism proposal. We discussed the problem from bottom to top. We actually spent that whole day going over the problem and the solutions that we saw. And just through that one day's meeting, I came back home, and it was about 3 or 4 weeks later that Mike Moyer came up with this proposal. It's comprehensive. It covers the total alcoholism problem, clear up to the solution. It is the things in here that are outlined now at that time, which is about 5 years ago, I see coming into effect now today, not through this program. The end product, the end solution that we had in mind and that's written into this proposal is being implemented by the full tribal council now today in development of business. We recognize that we can contact a person and counsel him, which they're doing and have been doing for quite a few years. But after that, when he comes out of that part of the program, he's turned back to the street or to his home or to his family. And when he gets there, he still doesn't have a job. And he needs work to keep himself occupied, to give him some kind of a some kind of motivation to go on further and build on something that he has never had a chance to have. All the tribal businesses that are being developed now is a goal that we had set in this proposal, which are happening now without going according to this proposal. We have many different businesses now that are going now, that have started since that time, and I'm kind of glad to see that, because that's what our people do need, is employment. That doesn't solve the whole total program for the Yakima tribe. We're running into problems now where we probably, if we develop to the point where we want to be, that we wouldn't have enough tribal members to take care of the employment needs of the Yakima tribe in all the businesses that we develop. We're running into things like when people work for a certain amount of time and they seem to get a payday and they're off on a celebration, or having parties on the weekend and not able to show up for work on Monday. And then we have these large celebrations that Indians seems to be inclined to attend. When that happens, then they all want to lay off and they want to go to celebration, which I don't criticize that. But I do know that we're probably quite a ways off yet from solving all our problems in the Yakima tribe, but I believe we're making progress. I learned after I got into council that I don't see any reason for me to criticize my fellow council members. I do have to look at myself and make sure that I'm doing the right thing, you can't please all the people all the time. There'll always be people that will criticize me and the council members, but I believe it's just the lack of understanding of what we're really trying to do. I think that the tribe is now going in the right direction, as far as I can see, and probably always have been, but it's been at a slower pace maybe. I see quite a few changes since council has changed 5 or 6 years ago. There's more business being developed. There has been an increase in spending of money to direct social needs of the people. I know we had a little welfare program when I was on health committee that we spent 3 or 4 times the amount of money that we were authorized to spend. Not to say that that's bad, but it just meant that our people were in bad need of things that they had to have. I don't know if there's any more that I could add to that.
Or perhaps you can get the main highlights of your script.
Oh, the proposal.
Yeah, proposal that you and Michael Moyer had.
Well, it starts out with where you contact the person. When you pick a person up within the last few years, the country started to go with the idea that alcoholism was a sickness, and they began to recognize that. So they said that instead of taking a person that's drunk to jail, we'd take him to a treatment center where he would have a chance to, when he first got into the treatment center, he would be stripped, given a thorough physical examination, where a lot of times what happened with the physical examination was other disease or illness that the persons have been detected and treated. And then they'd be given drugs that were appropriate for his condition to phase him off from his drinking so that he wouldn't be too sick when he woke up. So we did, I was fortunate to, we had a tribal member working in Olympia in law and justice, Bill Yallop, and I went to him and he promised us a certain amount of money through the program that he was working on, federal money that went down to the state on law and justice. He promised us $50,000, and the tribe would put up $25,000. That's how it started out. But before we got finished with the treatment center, it amounted to, we spent well over the $150,000 ourselves, the tribe did, for this facility that's operating for about a little over a year now, or 2 years. It's not adequate. There's only 15 beds in there. Sometimes they have to crowd in a few more beds. So it really isn't adequate, and it has to be expanded some way. That's a real need for the tribe today. But when they get into that treatment center and the counselor will contact them there, and his treatment process begins there. And while he's in there, the counselor will work towards getting him a job when he gets out of there. And then they're an important development part of this proposal was to develop tribally owned businesses that would be developed in order to provide employment for these people. Because we talked about the idea that when an alcoholic or a person that's drunk comes out of a place like this, nobody seems to want to hire him. They don't give him a chance, you know. They know that he's unreliable and unsteady, and that he won't be there all the time. They can't depend on him. Well, the businesses that we were going to develop through this program were to provide him a job, regardless of how bad his drinking problem is. At least give him a chance. And let him know that when he went to work there, when he was hired, that he was not going to get fired. And also develop a system of payment where the more reliable he was, the more his pay went up. And if he went backwards, then his pay would go backwards with him. But at any rate, he would never be fired from this job. And he had the chance to work up to be the manager of these different businesses that we were able to develop. We started out to develop this business, but I never could get the council to put a good amount of money into this program as operating capital, and that's where this business failed to develop the proper way. It was just the idea of putting $100,000 into it to use as operating capital to further develop the business so that it would develop into something solid and money-made. They had some good money-making projects, but just no operating capital. But fortunately, all these other tribal businesses did develop. But still, we found out right away that one drawback of this proposal was the halfway houses where these people would live. We had about 14 or 15 to 20 people in this treatment center that had no other place to live. Their relatives didn't want them. The only thing that they were doing was going back to town where they had no place to sleep or no place to go, into the tavern and back to the treatment center again. They're just making a continuous circle. So our big need, which still isn't addressed, is a halfway house. We had proposed in here about 4 halfway house apartment buildings. That would be about enough room there for about 20 people to live in these halfway apartments, where they would be 3 or 4 to the apartment. They would do their own, manage their own budget, manage their own cooking, take care of their own cleaning, wash their own clothes and bedding, do everything for themselves in these halfway apartments. And that way we figured that they would go to work from these apartments and back to the apartment. It wouldn't be under no lock and key. but everything would be turned over to their own ability to manage themselves. That way that they would have a place to stay. When they got to be reliable and could earn the money, then they'd have the ability to look around and find their own apartment, their own house, their own place to live. That way they would be phased on through the program and maybe on their own. Another part was missing was the education part of it that we proposed to use Camp Chaparral during the winter to give them family counseling. That is, the whole family would be there for counseling for a certain amount of time. Well, since I got off of this program, and the last year I've been on Law and Order, I haven't had any chance to check on this program and see how it's progressing, but we were able to bring in 3 years financing at $230-some thousand a year. This program, it takes to run this program. Now they'll be on their last year, I believe, so somehow it has to become self-supporting, and I don't know how they're making out with it. But it is a heavy need here in the Yakima tribe.
What is the difference between Shaker and this proposal?
Well, there's no relationship between this and the Shaker religion. The Shaker religion is a Christian religion. It came around 1882. Man died and he came back to life. He received a message to tell the people, and he said that the old religion, the old doctor people on the coast, they were a little different than Longhouse. They had a different system, I believe, on the coast. That religion was used to cure people with. They'd done a lot of that over there. All my old people were doctor people. And when this Shaker religion come, the man said that this religion was replacing the old religion on the coast, because when they received this religion, they received all the teachings by this one man. And then he took sick, then his wife received the medicine that she healed him, cured him through this power that she got. And they said that this power, you can't use it to hurt no one with. The other one they used to use to kill one another with it. The sick person, they let him lay there, and work on him. Well, I need more money or something. So you work on him some more. Maybe they died, If you didn't get enough money to pay him, well, you usually lost the patient. But the Shaker religion is different. You help a lot of sick people, but there's no charge or no kind. So you can't. But this proposal there's nothing in religion about it. It's just an idea that was developed to help people.
That's all.
Good timing. Just about on tape.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you used up all the half an hour, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I thank you, Harris.
Okay, Don.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
There are
listening to you.
other things I'd sure like to talk about, but
Yeah.
I can't get them until I'm in the right kind of mood,
Well, we're open all the time.
Yeah.
If you can get lined up.
No, I think I've done enough here.